Okay, Mark's off 6. So we're good to go.
Tell me a little bit about your childhood and what it was like growing up in Pennsylvania when you did.
I can just remember it as being a lot of love, fun, where everyone was one big family. Edenborn, even though, you know, I was the little girl that belonged to the Stoner family. I'm a Stoner girl, where your name meant something, where people genuinely cared, where a neighbor would, yes, in a minute, call your parents and let you know if there was anything that you didn't do that was right. But it was a true community where people took care of each other. I grew up in a coal mining community. Gee, I don't know that there were more than 400 or 500 people. And my father was a coal miner. And I saw my father go to work each and every day. And I should point out that I knew what it was to work hard. Probably by the time my father was 45, he had both of his legs amputated. And so, but you know what's interesting about that? As soon as he got out of the hospital, he went back to work in the mine. Now, what's interesting about that is that I come to find out only a few years ago that one of the neighbors, one of the miners, exchanged places so that my father didn't have to go deep into the mine, but he was able to work just outside the mine, and I guess in their office there, and another guy exchanged and risked his life every day. But there it didn't matter what your nationality was. It was black, white, you know, Italians, Polish. I mean, it just didn't matter. We were all a fabric of society, all working hard to live, survive, and take care of one another. We were truly our brothers and sisters keepers. And I just remember every night praying, always afraid that there would be a siren. I would hear a siren, and that generally meant that there had been a mine explosion. And everyone poured into the street or went down to the fire hall to ask, what shift was that? You know, and you'd be so relieved that your father wasn't caught in that mine explosion, and yet so sad and worried about your neighbor or one of your schoolmates who may have lost their father. So we saw hard work from our parents, but we grew up believing and trusting in each other. There weren't any stop signs, stop lights. It was just a small, what they called a patch. To that extent, it wasn't even on a map, you know. But in my heart, there was just a lot of love. In fact, I recall one incident when I was getting an award that Reverend Jesse Jackson was giving me, and he said something like, "It must have been rough growing up there in Appalachia." And I thought, Appalachia? Gee, I didn't know I was growing up in Appalachia. Wasn't that poor? And I really, I mean, it never struck me that that's what it was. I felt rich. I would never want to leave Edenborn, you know. Although I did point out that I used to wonder when I would come home from school sometimes and I would see my mom watching the soap operas and I would see these people dressed in evening gowns and suits, and I thought, dang, in the middle of the day, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, I never saw people like that. You know, I saw parents that my father who and all the other men there go to work with a metal bucket, you know, and work clothes. Many times winter clothes on in the summer because they were going deep into the mines. So it caused me to wonder about that other life.
Why were your dad's legs amputated?
Well, they determined that he had Berger's disease. I think that they were really confused and not really ever sure. As you know, black lung is something that is very common amongst miners, and when you stand in a coal mine or in that deep pit, deep beneath the earth in a bent over position, you have to know that there were a lot of diseases that miners would get that people don't talk about. You know, I just remember him coming home each night or day and just coughing this black soot out of his throat. But I remember the doctor saying, because he was at West Virginia University Hospital, he was a Presbyterian hospital in Pittsburgh, and he said, if you were to look at my father, he looked like he was about 20-some years old, not a gray hair in his head. But yet his veins, his arteries were that of a 90-year-old man. Mm-hmm. So it was a circulatory problem that they call Berger's disease. And to this day, you know, I wonder what really happened. But we lost my father at a rather early age.
I mean, it takes a lot of determination to keep going back into the mine every day anyway, let alone having lost your legs. What kind of impact did his determination have on you and your character, you think?
Let me tell you something. I pale in comparison to any work that I would ever try to do. You know, my father would often say, you know, I had several scholarships. He was a captain of the football team and was very smart in school. I had several scholarships, but, you know, your mother and I chose to get married, and we had children. And I want you to understand that the education is the most important thing that you can get, because you can either work with your back or work with your head. Obviously, in coaching, I've worked with my head more, but I always feel guilty. There's no amount of work that I can ever do that compares to his. And then when you consider that he had his legs amputated, and I would hear him moan many times at night, you know, through the walls, and yet every morning he would get up, slide down the steps, put his prosthesis on, and have a smile on his face and go to work. So I can't ever, I don't look at my players, we have no excuse. Are you kidding me? You know, we're not gonna work. What we're doing is easy. Life is easy, you know. But, you know, here I saw a mom and dad that were committed to raising and taking care of our family, and important, you know, and emphasizing the importance of hard work and getting an education. They paid for piano lessons that they really couldn't afford. You know, there were too many times that there were strikes. When the miners were going strikes, that means that the families didn't get a paycheck. And so they talk about company stores. So when you ask what was Edenborn like, well, all the houses were basically the same. They were just different colors, you know. And the company store was a place where, you know, you got credit, you know, for food. And yet, when those strikes took place, it was those times that you would get government cheese and you would get powdered milk, you know. And you as a child really did. I just loved my parents with all my heart and soul, and just felt that I wanted to do anything and everything I could. One, to make them proud, and two, to contribute, because I did understand, and I did know of the struggles and what they tried to do. And I shared this the other day. I remember going to the coal mine, where what they called a slate dump, which wasn't too far from our house, maybe about a mile. But we couldn't afford the coal to keep us warm in the winter. And so my brother Tim and Verna, my sister and I and my dad walked to the slate dump, and we picked coal, and then we carried it home so that we could put it in a furnace. But you know what? That didn't seem like a burden. It just seemed like I was so proud, because I was helping to keep our family, you know, going. And we each felt that. And I look at families today, and I sometimes wonder that we shield them so much. They think that money, you know, just comes out of that little ATM machine. You know, they don't realize the sacrifices that the parents are really making each and every day. And I'm just grateful to this day. Thank God that, you know, I had parents that allowed us to be a part of a family unit. We all were doing our part to make our family proud and to work hard to make it.
And what was your parents' view of girls and their place in society?
My parents made me believe that I could be anyone. President of the United States, what do you want to do? But the one thing that they would always tell us is that there's a price to be paid. They never told us what we had to do, which is what has led to even my coaching style today. I'm like that. If you can tell me, just make some sense. Tell me why, and then I'm good. You know, but they taught us the consequences of things. And so when they would say, you know, well, if you want to do this, this is a price you're going to have to pay. You want to be a doctor, then you have to love science, and you have to work on this and that. But my father would just remind me, he said, you know what, when it comes to the housework, I noticed that you're real shy. And he's right, but they would always defer. Like, I didn't have to do the dishes if I was participating in some school activity, so be it a concert or I was playing in a band or something like that. So I found a way to do those kinds of things. But on the other hand, I always knew that you had a price. For everything, that there are consequences, and there's a price to be paid. And as my parents would say, you make your bed hard and you lie in it. And you understand that there are consequences. And as a result, today, you know, I know that for anything that you want, there's a sacrifice and there's a price to be paid. And we all pay in our own way. We make conscious decisions on that.
And how about by the larger community? How were you treated as a girl, as an African American girl?
I really believed it. See, at the time, obviously, there weren't any black, even the idea of a black president. Are you kidding me? But yet my parents made me think, oh, you can become president of the United States. And I thought, I might just do that because, I was one that was always seeking justice. And so I was socially conscious of a lot of things. And I remember going to a Boy Scout meeting. Well, I went to the Boy Scout meeting because there were no Girl Scouts. And I thought, gee, the guys always have all the fun. They're rubbing sticks and starting fires and having roasted marshmallows and everything. So I went to the meeting. I saw that they were having an ice cream social. Well, that sounded great, because I would play, sports with the guys, and I wanted to do that too. And as the scoutmaster went around, he said, well, little stoner girl, girls aren't allowed. And I was so hurt and, just upset, embarrassed. But I walked away. I wanted to know why the boys in my community, why they were playing, baseball and basketball. And I was always the first one, if not many times the captain, when they would play down at our school. And yet, that was Sunday through Thursday. But on Friday, it was the guys that had the uniforms. On Saturday, and I could never understand. It seems like the guys had a chance to do all these things. Well, girls, how dare you even think about that? And I just absolutely hated to be called a tomboy. That really bothered me because there seemed to be a negative connotation with that, and so this is all prior to Title IX, and even so, there's still lingering effects of that. But, I kept thinking, why can't I just be tough on a court, but then when I get done, I'm a lady, I'm still a girl, come on, what's the problem here? It seemed that, well, guys should seek to be the president of the class. Where are our principals at the school? Why is it that everyone seems to be the, subordinates, women? And I thought, well, I'm not going to do that. I can do anything. I can be anything that I want to be. And, I go so far as eating Wheaties in the morning and running around the community because I wanted to be a track star. And I thought, yeah, that all looks good. But you see, when I talk about prices that you have to pay, I decided to try out for the track team, and I saw all the times that they were running with the dust and the soot in their throat and jumping. I thought, do you want to do all this running just to have that one victory lap? And the same thing, it was just, I had those kinds of dreams, and I think that dreaming is necessary. Music, those piano lessons that I took, I really imagined myself on the concert stage. Why? And I could see, the orchestra waiting for me to come, walk in my gown, and I would play. But you see, I really wasn't going to sit there for hours and practice the fingering that was necessary, because in addition to my father working in the coal mine, he was also a jazz musician. And so I always heard music different from what that was to be played, So I just believed that I could do anything, and I think that it's important to have dreams.
Let me get you back to sports. Tell me a little bit about what sports appealed to you as a girl and what you were good at and how you sort of got a sense that you had some abilities in that area.
Well, let me say this. I loved basketball, and I was pretty good at that. I loved all sports. I remember even thinking that I would be a gymnast, and then I realized you really have to have some formal training. So when I would watch television, I knew how to spot by putting a towel around your waist and flipping my sisters and brothers over, and I thought, yeah, I could be a gymnast. And so I did some gymnastic shows. Everything, field hockey, everything. And I used to wonder, why do I get so excited? I would get excited when I would hear the band play, or that a ball would bounce and I'd walk in the gym, and I thought, what is it? Why is it that I get so excited? And I guess that's just the love, the passion that you have. And I love them all. I, obviously ended up going into basketball, but that was because I played basketball in college as well as field hockey. But basketball was my true love, and I had an opportunity with my basketball coach, Dr. Griffith, to actually serve as a graduate assistant. And I thought, isn't this sad? Guys can go on from college into the pros, but we had to stop. And of course, there were very few opportunities in Europe, but in order to stay somehow connected with sports, it seemed to be only through coaching. And I thought, that is boring. Who wants to coach? That is so disgusting. But when I had an opportunity to work as a graduate assistant, I would get so excited about coming up with offenses and defenses, that I could never imagine myself loving coaching more than I did playing, but I really did. and I still do. When I was playing basketball, first of all, in order to play basketball, I had to walk from my house, like maybe a half a mile down to the elementary school where there was a basketball court, which of course had potholes and everything, so you really had to learn to play well. And it also, the ball had a bubble on it, so when you would bounce it, it would kind of move. So you had to get through that. But I still remember walking from my house to the school with a skirt on and a brown bag, because I dare not walk through the community with shorts on. And I would get down to the court, and then I'd throw my skirt off, and I'd play with the guys. And then I just remember many times looking to see cars that would be passing. I was thinking, gee, they see me down there playing. And the guys would, come on, VI, because that was my nickname, and come on, let's play. Let's play. And I would get so excited. I thought, why do I have this feeling of a thrill and enjoyment, and yet, what's wrong with this? And I always wanted my friend Arlene, who was the only other girl that would come down to play. I wanted her to come too, because wow, like at least there were two of us, but something had to be wrong. Why? Why was that I loved it so much? And of course, I think that as time has evolved, parents have come to understand that with Title IX there are so many opportunities. It got to that, but I never will understand. And I even to this day, I get so excited just sitting down and writing out a practice. And that feeling is something I can never quite explain. It's just that my heart starts to beat. I get excited about having people move and having things flow. It's much like conducting an orchestra. All the pieces that have to fit into place. And it's the same feeling that I've had. And really at a very young age, I used to lay in bed and just wonder, why is it that I have such a love for, when I hear a ball bounce, or I was always drawn to sports, and it's just something about me that I'm grateful for too.
How aware were you, or did you have any awareness as a kid about any female athletes out there?
The only female athlete that I remember, no, I shouldn't say the only, there were a few. There was Althea Gibson, and I just admired her. Wow, that was special. Althea Gibson. And I wanted to play tennis, but you see, now you can imagine that you can't really afford tennis lessons or a tennis racket. Now, I lived in Edenborn. We did not have a tennis ball. I mean, we were lucky to have a basketball that everybody used. The other was track. And I remember seeing The Wide World of Sports, and I saw Wilma Rudolph. And, I met her years later, but I was so thrilled. And I thought, Wilma Rudolph, look at her. Oh, look at those thousands of people that would stand up, in the Rome Olympics. And that's probably where I got the idea of running track, And when I got a job, I think in my junior year in high school, there was a girl whose father owned that supermarket, and she invited me to, Wendy, she invited me to play tennis, and I thought, I'm going to take my money that I earn, I'm going to buy a tennis racket, and I want to learn to play tennis. So I saw myself doing those things, but we didn't have many, so it would probably more likely be track for one, and of course Wilma.
Tell me a little bit more about what the feeling you had was watching Wilma Rudolph on The Wide World of Sports and seeing a crowd cheering for this woman athlete.
She represented her country. She made a statement to the world, and wow, she was the best at what she did, and I always had a desire to be the best at what I did. She was the best, and she handled it with such grace and dignity. And what was even more important is I, learned of her story. And I'm one of these people that love the rags to riches story, the people that get knocked down that keep rising up. I want to continue to be encouraged by the people who are the have-nots of the world. That's me. And so I thought, she had polio and she still overcame this. There's no reason why I can't run. I'm going to do this. All I need to know is that someone made a sacrifice. I'm inspired by her story, so yeah, and it would be years later, actually, as a coach. I was a coach at the University of Iowa when she was one of our keynote speakers. And afterwards, one of my colleagues introduced us, and it was love at first sight. We really just talked. I went down to her hotel room and we just talked and talked. And she invited me to come up and visit her in Indianapolis, which is where she was living, and I did. It was amazing. We had a great friendship, and she invited me to her birthday party. So I thought, wow, this is a dream come true. Can you imagine? Can you imagine this woman who had accomplished and had done all of that? But what was obvious to me is that she was just a great human being, just an ordinary person, like everybody is, like all of us are.
Going to move you to the cheerleading episode. Tell me a little bit about that. What made you go out for the team, and what happened, and how did you cope with it? I'll let you tell me.
Yeah,
the story.
okay. Let me say this. First of all, this is true. I'm not the 2-4-6-8. You know, who do we appreciate? I'm not the cheerleader type, period. Remember I said to you that I loved sports. And, wow, I mean, I would watch the same guys that I would play with on Sunday through Thursday. And I was like, dang, you know, like, this doesn't make sense. You know, the wrong people are taking the shots, or look at the way he's shooting the ball, you know, and I gotta go out for cheerleading because I need to get closer to these guys while they're playing, you know, on the court or in the field to tell them what to do.
But you're talking about once you already were a cheerleader. Tell me how it was that you came to be one.
I came to be one because I tried out, and they were having an open tryout in the gym, and the students were there, and we had a routine that we did, and at the end of the day, they called the people who had made the team, they called their names, and as I listened intently, I didn't hear mine, and I'm thinking, wow, I feel so bad. But you see, my parents always taught me never to make excuses, don't blame anyone for your own shortcomings, always to look from within, what could you have done better yourself? You know, and like my father would say, you know, if you came up short, then you need to deal with that. If you didn't and you were right, then he and mom would defend us in whatever it might be in life. Well, in this case, I kept thinking, well, maybe I didn't stick the landing right. Maybe I should have dropped my voice. Maybe, you know, one arm was a little bit higher than the others. And aside from that, I'm not interested in cheerleading. So as I went home, I never even told my parents that I tried out. But little did I know, there was a gentleman by the name of Son Steele who was involved in the NAACP, and he'd come really to talk to the principal about something else with his nephew or something. And he happened to have been in the gym amongst those hundreds of other kids that were there. He saw the tryout. So later that day, he came to visit, you know, my dad. Well, I was by now upstairs going to sleep. And I heard him say to my father, they called him Buddy, man, we really do need for you to allow your daughter, she's got great grades, and I saw her in the tryouts. She was not only one of the best, she was clearly the best. She is so talented that we haven't had a cheerleader here. If there's ever going to be a time that there is going to be a black cheerleader, it's now. Which I do want to point out that I come to find out that there was a girl by the name of Dancer who had been a cheerleader, but it was quite a few years before that. I think I may have been 3 or 4, but nonetheless, in our era, we didn't know of that. And so he was saying to my father, please let us present her before the school board. And my father said, well, you know, I'll speak to her. And I'm thinking, oh, I don't even want to hear this. Please don't even ask me about this. I don't even like this. So when my father came upstairs and he said, Vivian, it's not, you know, about you. Perhaps it's not even for you. But it is for future generations of young women who will come after you. And you have to understand something. If you don't stand up for something, you'll fall for anything. I need you to think about this. Well, I was so nervous and so scared because I sort of had the cover partially over my head. And with that, he quietly walked out of the room. I couldn't go to sleep that night. I could not go to sleep that night. And I kept thinking, yeah, okay. So they did. They presented me before the school board. I was placed on the team. Well, I think, let me say this. I think that every one of us has a defining moment. I know that mine was this cheerleading incident because I was placed on the team and I couldn't help but feel inferior, less than, guilty because I never wanted to cause a problem. You know, there was some conversation around the school and everything. Well, this girl didn't make the team, but she's placed on the team. It was so horrible. And I remember the first day of practice, and I was in the bathroom where all of the cheerleaders would would change their clothes. And I could hear them walking toward the bathroom, and I quickly got up. Because, like, this is the first time I'm meeting them, so I'm like, okay, what are you doing here? Basically is my feeling that I was having. And as I quickly ran into the bathroom, in one of the stalls, I put my feet up. So if you can imagine, you see, and they start talking right away. They weren't talking about me or anything, but they were talking. But like if you don't let people know that you're there, it's kind of like you're eavesdropping. So now you're afraid, And so I began to look out through the crack of that shower door, that bathroom door, and I saw the girls putting on makeup. Well, it was called pancake makeup. And I thought, that's interesting, because all the time when I would see the cheerleaders, their legs always looked uniform, and I kept thinking to myself, gee, how could you wear stockings when you're doing this? You get runs in your stockings. Oh, so that's how they do that. And then I said to myself, but where's my color? And I felt so hurt, I can't even tell you how hurt I felt about that. Where's my color, And needless to say, I love cheerleading. My friends are everlasting and all that. But I do want to point out this. My father was right, because it would be those many years later that my two nieces, Keontae and Tiana, became cheerleaders at that same school. So it did open the door, but little did I know at the time, but I vowed from that day on that I never wanted anyone, especially a female, ever to feel inferior. I didn't want any woman, keep in mind that the Girl Scouts and everything, that I would do everything in my power for every day that I lived to make sure that no woman felt guilty or ashamed because of her gender, or that no person felt inferior because of their race. That was a defining moment. I learned that I need to speak up, My father always impressed upon us. My mom always impressed upon us. I saw with the way that she went to speak for me about getting a job, that your voice is important. Who you are is you're a making of God, no less than anyone else. So whether it's the Pope or the Queen or the President, your voice is just as important. You have a responsibility to speak up. Because if you don't, speak up, not only for yourself, but speak up for others. Because this world is too filled with people who are so willing to let other people speak for them. And I learned that. I learned that when I had a recital when I was in 3rd or 4th grade to play Moonlight Sonata. And I was so scared. And I remember telling my dad, I can't play this. And he said, look, let me tell you something. Look into the audience. Because most people are so empathetic. They want you to succeed. They want anyone who's standing up, because you're doing something that they can't do. So whether you're speaking or whether you're playing, just look into the eyes of people who will give you the assurance that it's okay. And if you feel that people aren't with you, then the heck with it, because you know what? They wouldn't do it, because if they could, they'd be up there. And I always remember that, and I remembered that I would always have a voice, because I never, ever wanted to feel as I did. And it was a defining moment, and so whether I coached at Cheyney, Iowa, or Rutgers, the point was that I want to push young women to lift their heads up and speak their mind, and to know that you're worthy, and to do anything less. Sometimes I challenge them in lots of different ways, but when they finally find their voice and when they speak up, I just have a smile, and I think, that's what I was trying to get to.
And the challenge to their keeping you off the squad, was that in court, or it was you going before the school board?
It was the presentation of me to the school board. In retrospect, I realized that one of the school board members was a member of our community. He saw me playing with the guys all the time. He knew that I was really, I could throw whatever, like I said, I really even thought about becoming a gymnast, so I could throw the round off the hand, no handsprings, all of that. I was no doubt the most athletic person there.
In college, you played college ball?
I played basketball in college. I didn't have a scholarship because that was pre-Title IX, but I so enjoyed it. It was my life. It was everything. I played college basketball. I played field hockey. Actually had a lot more awards in field hockey than basketball. And volleyball. Yeah, played volleyball. And for fun, really honed my skills on tennis. I love tennis. I love all sports, really, except swimming.
Okay. I want to talk about moving from playing to coaching. When did the idea of coaching first enter your mind, and what was the attitude in general about women coaches and women's ability to coach players? Tell me about both those things.
Okay, first of all, coaching never entered my mind. I thought that playing would last forever. Oh my God, that's all I ever wanted to do, just play and play and play. But you know, as any athlete will tell you, that last day will come. And when it does, even though your coach or others may tell you, or you might be consciously aware of it, it's like a lead brick. Wow, it's over. It's over. It's over. And so, you know, I wanted to continue to be somehow, continue to be, you know, involved in sports. And I was fortunate because my college coach, Dr. Griffith, invited me to become a graduate assistant. And that meant working with her in the basketball team. And that was the love. Oh my goodness. That was my true love. And I didn't even, and I thought, gee, it must be boring to be a coach. You know, don't you want to run and jump and do all these other things? But I found my passion there. Now, was I looked upon as a female coach? Keep in mind that I worked for 11 years at Cheyney University, which is my first coaching job. And fortunately for me, I started right there at the collegiate level. I did not get paid a dime, but I would have paid them. I was just so happy. I was an assistant professor at the university. And when I say that, it was the love of the sport. The vast majority of coaches of women's basketball were not paid anything, you know? And for those that were paid, they were paid peanuts. I was not paid. The only thing I asked my department head to do was, please don't schedule me for a 7:30 health class the night, you know, after a game when I get in 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. That was it. That was it. I was excited. I was excited about that.
So explain to me, you were a paid teacher and they just made you they threw in the coaching for absolutely free? Like
they
literally?
didn't throw it in. I volunteered. We just had a departmental meeting, and I wanted to coach basketball so bad. And my husband worked at Lincoln University, which was not too far, you know, from my school. And I was telling him, you know, we're going to have a departmental meeting, and they're going to let us, you know, decide what sports we wanted to coach. And I hope that I get a chance to coach basketball, but I'm thinking, why, surely that is not going to be left. So what ended up happening is they said, well, who wants to coach the softball team? And I thought, I better go ahead and take that because I love softball too, and I probably won't get a chance to coach basketball. So I raised my hand. I do. And they said, okay, that's good. Okay, Coach Stringer, you're going to be coaching the softball team. And now, who would like to coach the volleyball team? And I thought, I do. So I raised my hand again. And they said, well, Stringer, you're going to be coaching, you know, the volleyball team. I thought, wow, this is great. And then the one that I was waiting for. And who would like to coach the basketball team? And I looked around thinking, I don't want to be greedy, but I sure hope. And I didn't see anyone raise their hand. I said, I do? And they said, you got it. I thought, yes. Yes, I was so happy. And you know, this was the first year, my husband and I had gotten married like September 4th. And so all of this was taking place like within weeks. And I called him up, I'm so excited. I'm coaching the volleyball team, I'm coaching the softball team, I'm coaching the basketball team. Do you believe this? Yes. He said, well, you know, what's going to happen? You know, like volleyball runs into basketball. I said, I know, but I can get the girls to go over to the cafeteria and get me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And that's what I did. I was so happy, so very happy that I wouldn't think of asking for pay. Are you kidding me? You know? And so I want to point out that that when Title IX came about, it was no doubt the most wonderful thing that could happen to women. And I think that so many women have benefited, and people who were not even involved in sports, they as moms and dads benefited because their daughters had an opportunity to get a scholarship and she could become the doctor or the dentist or anything else, because the government was basically saying, look, you have to give equal opportunity to the women. They're paying those taxpayers' dollars. Oh my goodness, and we can never forget, while there were many, you know, Billie Jean King and how she stood up in her organization and what she's doing for so many women, and so many fathers that became involved. I would like to believe that maybe they didn't have sons and they were thinking, well, my daughter deserves an opportunity. If they saw the love and the passion that they had in their heart, as I did, I knew why. But then some parents also realized that, you know what, wait a minute, she can save us a lot of money. She can get a scholarship at thus and so places. So there were many reasons, and it gave women stature and rise, and it changed the thinking. It changed the thinking of women. But I need to say this to you. Keep in mind that 98% of the coaches of women's sports were women, because you did not get paid anything. When they started to pay anything, and when the pay became significant, when television began to cover women's sports, the face of women's basketball, as it relates to who is coaching that sport, changed dramatically. And so that's why some of us will say, just for the love of the game, we were there always. We were there from the beginning, just because we loved it, and just because we wanted women to have a sense of fulfillment. You know what I mean? Just a sense of satisfaction, not thinking that she would be able to parlay that, as they can now, into a profession where she can seriously, make a living or earn a living, certainly abroad and somewhat here in the United States.
Tell me about you as a coach. What kind of coach are you? What's the message you're trying to give to your players? Do you think that you as a woman has something to do with the way you coach, or do a man and a woman coach the same?
I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, I just know what I, as a woman, do and what I deeply feel in my heart. And as I said to you, I carry the sense that I want that woman, that female, to know that she's no less than the stars in the sky. She's just as good as the guys. It doesn't matter whether there's 15 or 20,000 people that are coming to the men's game. She shouldn't think of herself as any less. And, I'm going to continue to harp on that and to let her know that she has a voice. I think that we can't sort of cut ourselves out or carve ourselves into a corner and think that we're just supposed to play the sport. I think that we have a responsibility to try to grow the sport, in all things that we do. And I do remember as a athlete in undergraduate school, going to see our president. I spoke to our president, our vice president, and the dean, and I said, "Why is it that you never come to see the women play?" He said, "Well, we've never been asked." I said, "Well, good. You're being asked now. Why don't you come to see us play? We happen to be playing a field hockey match." So I never said anything to my coaches, but I was telling the girls, I said, "Guess what? The deans are going to come and the president's going to come." And I think it was Dr. Abersol, but it doesn't really matter the name so much as it was that day or later that week, these guys and these trench coaches, our president and the vice presidents, were sitting on the top of the hill. And it's raining and they're watching us play. And the girls were like, "Oh my God, this is so great. Wow, we're worthy. We're worthy." So I think that Title IX gave us all an opportunity to lift women. And let me say this, I would never sacrifice good coaching for any woman, to have a female coacher. That's unfair. I want her to have the best of coaching. She deserves that. If I had a preference and there's equality, a male, versus a female, I would prefer that she be coached by a female. That's not sexist. That's not anything. It's just that we need role models too. That I want to believe that woman is looking at that other female and say, she can be strong. She can be a leader. She can be the head of something. She can run the show. She really can. She can have that power, if you will. I just believe there's something special to that. All I have to do is recall my own experiences. Now, would I sacrifice, poor coaching to just have a female? No, absolutely not. But between the two, no question in my mind. I think that Title IX began to open the doors and to change things for a lot of women. Is it everything okay still? No. We have issues as it relates to society's acceptance of sports. And really, there are misgivings about a lot of things that are going on.
What kind of a coach are you?
I'm intense. I really am intense. I'm sensitive, extremely sensitive. compassionate, and there's a passion. I can't coach what I call oatmeal. I can't coach walls. Like I coach through your eyes and through your heart. I want people that feel, that love this as I do. The people that you don't really have to scream at. Like, we're here. I'm here because I want to be. This is my love. You're here because you want to be. We're trying to be the best that we can be. Isn't that good enough? I'm a person that pushes excellence. I expect excellence. And some of that, and so much of that, is because of what I saw from my father and my mom. No excuses. No. Why are we excusing ourselves? We're fortunate to have breath in our body, and the good Lord has given us legs and breath. We have a dream and a hope in our heart. How dare us make excuses about what we can't do? I didn't see that. So I do have a difficult time understanding what you can't do. To say that you can't, you're wasting time. It's that you choose not to. To say that you can't, the end of that statement needs to be, I can't at this time, but I will. And I want to start the process. I think that is true with anything, and I try to instill that. We can do anything. We are the masters of our own destiny and of our own fate. So who am I? I'm the one who sets dreams. I want to hear your dreams in your heart. I want to be the one that makes you smile, the one that says, you didn't think that you could, did you? But you did. I want to be the one that loves you enough to tell you what it is that you're not doing, but not to fool you, so that at those precious times between the ages of 18 and 22, so I can keep on babying you and telling you what you want to hear, telling you big time, you're this and you're that, when I know better. Or I can be that person that you're not happy with sometimes, but that person at the end that you're just going to hug me and say, thanks for helping me realize my dreams. Thanks for helping me realize my dreams. So I pursue excellence. I love with a passion. I'm sensitive. Like players will say, she's always crying, just because, and I care about. I really care. I genuinely, honestly do care about each of them. I care about our fans. I'll cry as quick about disappointing our fans, because I just want to always make people happy. I want to make people proud, and I want to feel good about what it is that I'm doing, and give you the best that I can of me.
Tell me about winning and losing. How much do you care about winning? What do you teach your players about losing? I
can't handle losing too well. I really don't, because once again, I'm not going to blame anyone. I look first within myself. That was something that I learned a long time ago. You should have emphasized this. You should have taught that. I can't sleep, so I'd rather practice as soon as I can, because I'm not going to sleep that night. It's going to go through my head 1,000 times. What did I need to do? The pursuit of excellence. Yeah. Is that attainable? I mean, is it perfection? No, it's not. It's something that you reach toward. It's like, to me, it's like a conductor that's conducting a symphony, and all the music coming together, is what you're creating. You want to see the smiles on everyone's faces. I really need to enjoy more the wins, because I can remember the losses like they were yesterday, but not appreciate enough the wins. And so what do I want to do? I want to appreciate that more. Now, that doesn't mean, I've come to learn and to know, that doesn't mean that I'm satisfying myself with less than, or second best. That doesn't mean that. It just means that I have come to learn that success is not measured in the wins or losses, but it's measured more by where you were and where you come from and where you are now. And in that case, then we continue to win, and so we'll just continue to get on that continuum and just keep on pursuing and trying to be the best that we can possibly be.
Tell me a little bit about Rutgers. What made you come to Rutgers? How's their women's basketball program? What was it like to get that opportunity and take it?
My life has been parallel with great triumphs and great tragedies. And I left Cheyney State University in Pennsylvania that I absolutely loved and never thought I would ever leave. But I left because, our daughter contracted meningitis at 14 months, and they had the largest teaching hospital in the world. And the people were wonderful, and the love that we got, and they were going to take care of our family on the medical side. So it was, an ideal place for us. And my husband and I basically didn't have what you call traditional roles. We did what we needed to do to take care of our 2 sons and our daughter Nina, who, like I said, had meningitis and was left without being able to walk or talk or speak ever again. And when we were getting along, we were making things work. Our 2 sons and Nina, and then my 2 sisters moved to Iowa City with us, and somehow we were making it. I mean, it was a family affair. Everyone was helping us make it. And then, suddenly my husband died to a heart attack. And then my life was just thrown into, oh my God, I mean, what am I going to do? Because he was the love of my life, the wind beneath my wings. It was everything. And so how am I going to make it? And the kind of work that I do is all consuming. It's all consuming. So how do you go on? How do you be a mom, and how do you continue this profession, which is the only thing I know? And you need to take care of your family, aside from the fact that it's something that you love. You thrust yourself into your work, but how do you do all that? And I really couldn't handle the fact that while I was in Iowa City and I loved the team, I had what was considered perhaps the greatest team that had ever been assembled in women's basketball. Finally, I got those elements in place, but what I've come to learn in life is that you can think that you love something, but when you are hurt by what's most important, which is your family, then nothing else really matters. So I decided to do what I have talked to young women about all the time. Deal the hand that has been dealt you. You look back and you can say, woe is me, and then again, am I going to live? How do I teach? How do I grow? How do I take care of my children? And I decided that it was more than I could bear. I couldn't handle living, there in Iowa, because that's where my husband passed. Actually, 20 years to the day of my father's passing. I mean, the same age. I mean, this is crazy. So I did need to leave, and I did. And Rutgers had been pursuing me. It wasn't something that I thought about. It really wasn't. But I think, like most people, we all like to have the comfort of security, being in the same place. Iowa, I felt, would take care of me. They knew, they loved us, but it was too much, I think, for my sons and certainly for me, because in their honest attempt to, we feel so sorry, or we love you and we're going to look after you and the boys and Nina, and that it was too much. We could never get away from that. So, I accepted the position at Rutgers, and it was one coming back to the East Coast, because, like I said, I started off at Cheyney, which is near Philadelphia, Cheyney University. And so here I am, accepted the position at Rutgers. And what I found out, too, is that while I want to pursue basketball at the highest level, and I pursue excellence, the team hadn't really won any major games. I mean, they hadn't been invited to the field of 64. I had just finished playing for a national championship. So here I am at the pinnacle of the success, much like what happened when I left Cheyney. I would have stayed there for life. But we had just played for the national championship at Cheyney. And there I went to Iowa. Iowa had only won 7 games the year before. So you just start over. Because one thing that I learned is that what you have in your head, no one can take from you. No one can take it from you. And so I took what was in my heart and my head, and I took it to Iowa. And now all of a sudden, I've got to go again. I've got to go, and I've got to start over again. And I just threw myself into my work, and here I am.
Do you remember the first time that you took a team to the Final Four?
Yes, I do, and yet it was so vague. Keep in mind that my daughter had contracted meningitis in November. She was fighting for her life for maybe 3 or 4 months, and she remained in intensive care. even in April, which is when this Final Four is going on. I lived in the hospital. I may have gone home maybe 3 or 4 times from November through April. I went back to work, to coaching, after about a month, maybe 5 or 6 weeks after Nina. We knew she was out of the woods, but it was still touch and go. My team came to the hospital and they talked to me, about just come back and and my husband was like, it would be good for you to get out of the hospital and just wrap yourself into basketball, So I would, leave the hospital for a couple of hours at a time and leave from Philadelphia Children's Hospital, go to practice and come right back from there and come back home. It almost all seems like a blur. But I do remember my assistant, Ann Hill, who called me to say, Vivian, once we had qualified and had won the games, and here we are, we're at a Final Four, we needed to go to Norfolk, Virginia, and she said to me, the NCAA has a rule that you have to be present for a, what do they call it, some kind of administrative meeting, you're like 2 days before, 3 days before the Final Four. Well, heck, what am I? I'm in a hospital. I have just my sweatsuits. I really don't have any clothes. And so she and another friend, assistant, Bunny, went to the store, bought some clothes and underclothes and everything else. They said, we'll pick you up from the airport and we'll take you to take you to Norfolk, which is where I was. I remember sitting there and I was thinking, this should be the greatest moment of my life. Isn't this what it's all about? You're playing for the national championship. Little old Cheyney State, no scholarships, $3,000, period. No weights, nothing. One gym that Coach Cheyney and I shared together. We come from nothing. We were like the giant killers of the world. We have nothing, but yet we had, in our midst, the possibility of a national championship. And yet, as I sat there, I thought, no one knows what's going through my mind. No one knows. I looked at our band. Well, we couldn't even afford to bring our band. The band's color were green and white. Good thing the television was in black and white, because the Cheyney colors are blue and white, But people felt sorry for us, and they said, Norfolk State said, come on, you can have food at our cafeteria. And you know what? Our band will play for you. And our students got whatever they got together, and they got a bus, and they came down to Norfolk, and they were screaming. They were so proud. I felt so proud because, see, it didn't matter whether your school size was 25 or 30,000 students. Little old Cheyney with his 3,000 students would bring everybody down. Because, see, it wasn't about the clothes on your back or the band or anything else like that. I learned that a long time ago. What's the basis for my being born in the childhood that I had? Everything was there. I continue to appreciate anything that I have and that I get beyond that. And so, yeah, here we were, playing for that. And I can just tell you that in going to Rutgers, I thought, isn't this a shame? Wouldn't it have been nice just to stay in one place and develop your life? Like Cheyney, I could have lived there forever, but you see, the have-nots, the great schools, the big schools were then saying, because at the time, the NCAA allowed you, if you're foolish enough, if you will, to play. Our school had 3,000 students, maybe. To play against a school that had 25 or 30,000, then you have to be foolish to do that. But if you think you can do this, then you go ahead. You can always play up, and which is what we did. But in this situation, all of a sudden, after, I go there to Iowa, then this happened, I lost my husband, and my whole world was rocked. And probably the release of me being able to come to Cheyney had more to do with my oldest son, David, saying, Mom, this is what you really love. This is you. Coaching is what you do. We're okay. Let's move. Let's get started again. And I thought that was the only voice that really mattered. What did he have to say about this? And of course, Justin, being the youngest, said that he felt the same way. And there we got started, and we started from scratch. But that didn't really bother me, to get started again, because I believed that we would rise just like we did, at Cheyney, just as we did at Iowa. And I believe that would be what would happen.
And did you rise?
We rose. We rose. Yes, yeah, we did. It was pretty special. I mean, the fans were special. The kind of support that we got was unprecedented. I mean, just people were so hungry for a winner. I think that the New York press, by its own nature, tend to be more focused toward the professional side, so they weren't really paying attention to us. And the next thing you know, we were fortunate because people came from all corners of the earth. You know, the one young lady came from Belgium. You know, the young lady that our point guard came from Chicago. You know, they were coming. One of our centers came from Canada. You know, and there it would be, just as I know, is that you have to deal the hand that's been dealt you. You don't have time to make excuses, but you pick yourself up and you go on. And here we were with Tasha Pointer, who's now my coach. Wow, we all rose and we played, you know, for that first, you know, Final Four. Actually, there at Rutgers, for the NCAA's Final Four, because Rutgers had gone to an AIAW Final Four, that is the pre-Title IX. And not only that, we went twice. You know, and you know, it might seem strange that I would forget the years. I'm not sure. I think it was 2001. I think it was 2007. I think, but I'm not really sure. But yeah, we went twice, and we hope to go again.
How did it feel taking that Rutgers team to the NCAA Final Four?
What's interesting about this is that the first Final Four in 2001, I thought to myself, isn't this amazing? When you went to the Final Four at Cheyney, your daughter was fighting for her life in intensive care. Because after we got out, that's exactly where we went back to the hospital. You go to the Final Four at Iowa. I sat there numb because my mom really, it was there, but it was like, so I don't know what it felt like. So when I say that to people, all you have to do is put yourself in my place. Do you really know what it feels like? You know, to be free and to have done, you know, this, your team has done this, and yet you are worried about your daughter that's in a hospital the first time at Cheyney. Next time, I kept thinking about my husband and the smile that he must have on his face and how hurt I was that he wasn't able to be there to share it with me. And it saddened me more than anything. And I'm thinking, God, why can't the highest of the high be just that, period? And so then, you know, I go to Rutgers and, you know, things started there. And then, you know, I found out, okay, you have breast cancer. Wow, that's interesting. Wow, how is this? The last one was the one that was free. You know, everybody's healthy, everybody's fine. We are going to the Final Four, and that was, as I've said before, it was clearly, I thought, the worst team I'd ever coached. I told them that a number of times. Just horrible. It was a very young group, for one. There were no seniors, and we had 5 freshmen, I think, and a bunch of juniors, and 1 or 2 sophomores. That was it. And what was interesting is we had been beaten by the #1 team in the country on our own floor by over 40 points when Duke beat us. You know, people were so disgusted, they just got up and walked out. And I took a time out to say to them, watch them walk. Not that I blame the people. They turn their backs on you because, you see, everybody wants a winner. But you thoroughly embarrassed me, this team, the tradition, everything, all of what we are, because we think we know so doggone much. You know, there are no shortcuts to the work that we have to do. See, I've known that, and sometimes when you have young people, they don't quite know. But, you know, they would begin to work hard. We would continue to lose. And then one day, the players who had been a part of championships and who had made the name of Rutgers, at least under my tutelage, decided to come back. They came from Russia, they came from Turkey, Italy. And it happened to be the day before New Year's. It was New Year's Eve. And we had started practice maybe at 6 o'clock. Here it is, 11:45. Those girls walked into that gym with their beautiful bags and beautiful clothes, and they had 3 days in the States. They were coming to celebrate the New Year's Eve there in New York, Times Square. But they took their clothes off and put on practice clothes. And they started to practice the drills and everything. And they started talking to the girls. You know, there were so many instructional things that were being said. Didn't coach tell you how to do this? Didn't she tell you to seal and close and come out at an angle? And the player would say, yeah, then do it. That's the reason that you keep getting the ball stripped. Didn't she tell you about going to a coffin corner and stopping just 2 feet or 2 inches over the half-court line? Yes. Then this is the reason why she said that. So there was a lot of, you know, oh, and didn't coach tell you to sit down and get low when you post up and wide? Didn't she? Yeah, you're not low. So it was like, you know, that kind of instruction. I mean, it was incredible, the intensity that they worked. And so our players looked at them and they thought, wow, it's 11:45. These girls that came from another country gave up their New Year's just to spend it with them. I think that the team really got a message. They understood the tradition. They understood what it meant. And while we struggled just a bit going forward, that team would never go back. They would always remember what it meant to give back who they were.
How did that team become? How good were they?
I think the measuring bar was Connecticut, and they had beaten us by 20-some points at our place. But for the championship, when it counted most, the team was so confident in what they had to do. To me, I don't think things like this happen by chance. I think that there's a lesson to be learned. And here we are in Hartford, Connecticut, playing for the Big East Championship. And they believed, and we won. They were able to celebrate that occasion. You see, earlier in the year, we were at a tournament in November, and we were supposed to play at University of Arizona. But you see, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Being that they were so young, we were getting ready to play University of Arizona, and they had a real unfortunate situation where one of the players' brother, who was 18 years old, died. So we, along with they, decided to forfeit the game. No one wins or loses. But as I told the team, we would have lost, trust me, because we were not able to handle this team. I would ask them, how shall we play them, defensively or offensively? And so young freshmen, yeah, we should play them man-to-man defense. And I thought, they will eat us up. You have no idea of what's going on here. Well, I told them that. I said, it's good that we didn't play Arizona because I can promise you we would have lost. And I told the coach that too. Well, wouldn't you know that once we qualified for the NCAA, I think it was every team that we had lost to during that year, which is kind of interesting how that happened. But those were all the teams that were in front of us. Not only that, we were, in order to go to the Final Four, we had to go to North Carolina, where Duke is, and play them, the #1 team in the country. That's how you get to the Final Four.
And what happened?
Well, you know what? The Giant Killers shocked them, just shocked them, as they did everybody along the way. And here we are going to the Final Four. Well, I tell you what, the NCAA was so shocked that they didn't even have, like when you go to the Final Four, if anyone has ever gone to an athletic event, there are like bobbleheaded dolls that are the replicas of the school. They didn't have a bobbleheaded doll for us. They had one for Duke, but none for us. I thought, okay, that's okay. That's okay. We went there and our first game was with LSU. It was the most incredible performance I'd ever seen. Oh my goodness. And we'd beaten, LSU easily, handily. And now it was Tennessee. I just remember looking above, and I saw that neon sign that kept saying, and then there were two. And I kept thinking to myself, two, my God, two in this whole country. The United States is arguably the best basketball place in the world. This team became that. Long story short is we lost in the championship game to Tennessee. Now, you could sit there and say, oh my God, you came short. But I would remember something that I do know to be true. And that is that nothing is as good as it seems or as bad as it seems. But the reality rests somewhere in between. So we thought we were coming home to triumph, and so I wanted to be on a high note, positive for the girls, like, man, you guys accomplished so much. We should be so proud of you. And then we heard the remarks, and that's, wow, are you kidding me? That was just devastating to us.
Tell me how you heard about it.
My media relations person, Stacy Brand, said, "Did you see this? Did you hear?" Well, you know, I really couldn't comprehend what she was saying. I really didn't. I remember because that day our school was having an assembly, and our president was going to come, and our governor, and everybody was going to address this. They were going to give praise to the team for making New York. I mean, they had turned the Empire State Building red in honor of the success of this team. So we were waiting for that celebration. But I knew, but I really had no idea, not really what was said, because I thought, nah, I know that was not said. That's not possible. It's really not possible. But I promised the team, I was saying to them, I know some things were said, and I promise you when you come back, I will address it. I will have a comment. I will address things appropriately. So go home with your families, enjoy, love, and appreciate the great season that we had. And so that's where that was. I remember getting a telephone message from Moses Malone, one of the great basketball players of all times. And it just said simply, they hurt our girls. And I was like, well, Jesus, like, what in the world is going on? And I realized that this has legs. This is, oh my God, the whole world, instead of us coming to triumph with this great story that I can never talk enough about, was being, presented as this, and these horrible things are being said. Yeah, I was really hurt, angry to say the least, very angry. It's important to calm what you feel and put into words what must be said. And it brought back this feeling that I had, as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old. It's like, what the heck? And so I remembered the way I felt, and I knew, like I told you, it was always my life thing. At no time would anyone ever hurt. I would never let girls and women feel this pain again. And I felt it. So I had the team come back when we came back, and I asked them how their day was, how their weekend was with their family, which I know everybody should have been like, oh my God, you guys went to the Final Four or played for the national championship, just didn't go to the Final Four, played for the national championship. And I heard various stories, some that never even talked about it. Wait a minute. How could you play for a national championship and be in that house and not talk about it? Or some whose eyes could not meet their moms or their dads because there was such pain. Are you kidding me? Oh, I heard them. They were just telling me. Or some who constantly got phone calls and was saying, that I feel bad about those terrible things about your team. Even as I talk about it today, it draws a lot of emotion, for me. And I share with the team what happened as a cheerleader. I've never talked to them about that before. Because I needed to tell them that no one can ever make you feel inferior unless you allow them. And we wouldn't allow that.
How hurt were the girls by what Don Imus
How do you
said?
explain it? I mean, you think about the question that you're asking. How hurt? What do you want? How do I quantify that? Are we kicking doors in? Are we cussing? Are we fussing? Are we what? All you have to do is look in somebody's eyes, in their heart. Don't you know what it looks like to be hurt? How hurt were they? I just know that we were all very hurt. And I knew that I was the one, just like my father and mom protected me as a youngster, as a child. I needed to protect my girls. And with everything in my being, close the curtain and forget about it, without talking about it in great detail, no, that wasn't going to happen. I would always stand up for what is right, because I learned that a long time ago. See, I know that our world, we appreciate people who are leaders, people who speak their minds. How could you go to sleep? Like I was trying to go to sleep when my father asked me about if I wanted to stand up. I learned that was the defining moment. You don't go to sleep ever. I try to teach my players that today. Don't leave a practice trying to guess about things. Ask the question. I have a responsibility to speak for them. If no one else stood up, I needed to stand up. But you see, I believe in the goodness of people. And I did believe, as I try to figure out what do I say and how do I say it, you know, and I try to get rid of this anger and this hurt and just being angry inside. And I know that that never carries you very far, you know, that as I try to put into words what was going on, you know, because I thought of all the teams that I've coached, do you realize that this one had the greatest story of them all? This is the one that you can tell little girls, it doesn't matter, or little boys. This was a dream come true. You know, it wasn't like we were born, we had this and that. We were nothing. We were the worst team. You know, we were absolutely nothing. We had failed every expectation that there was. These kids were so young. Like I said, they had braces on their teeth and their hair's up in ponytails. They were sitting on a bleacher less than 12 months ago. And they were on national television. I mean, they were being seen all over the world. And this great event was now being, you know, trivialized. They were cute. Some people were cute and some people weren't. You know, how could you hear this? How could you see this and not be touched at all? But you see, the one thing that I think allowed me to share how I felt in the best way that I should was my sister Ricky, who called me and she just said, you know what Dad would have said? Speak your heart, Vivian. Just speak your heart, VI. Don't worry about it. Just speak your heart. You know what Dad would have done. That was it. That was it. That was clearly it. I had a smile on my face. Yeah, I can do that. And that's why I said what I had to say. Because all I had to do was remember what my father would have told me. And it was easy. It was easy to just speak my heart. Not with any anger or to hold on to something that's past, because what has been done. But somebody needed to speak. And these girls needed to know that people loved them, and they didn't feel like a few people who would express their voice. And I think that, you know, as I reflect on it now, my father always taught me to try to help people to empathize, help them to feel what you're feeling. You know, because if they can say, well, I wouldn't have felt that way, then, that's just how they are. But I try to relate what had happened to these young people to every mom and dad and uncle and aunt and grandmom and grandpap. I tried to put everybody in that same place. How would you feel? When you can answer that question, then we can no longer close our eyes and act as though we didn't hear that and that it's okay. The problem that I see as we try to shape the world and try to do our little bit to make a difference is that people are so insensitive and so in the position of that's them and that's not me, without ever embracing and putting yourself in the same place as another. Because that to me is a remedy for a lot of things, but we don't. We divorce ourselves from that. We somehow are always looking at, well, that's what happened to them. And I just try to ask the question, was I any different than any other mom or dad would have been? Was I? Then why is it that we could sit here and accept this? Don't we have a responsibility with 17 and 18-year-olds? We keep, the whole conversation in this country has been about what's happening to our youth. Who are we? You know, we keep talking about, well, the Wall Street versus Main Street and the money and all that. At some point, when does this all stop? When do we find our moral compass? And you know what? I had no idea, nor did I expect the outpouring of support as we received.
Can you just describe how you and your players handled Imus's remarks, how you handled it in the media, and what you thought of your players' composure in that situation?
I just needed to step up. I needed to speak. I needed to be the protector of my girls. And I knew that I would. How could I? You know, as I shared many times, my parents protected me. And there was nothing that these girls had done wrong. And I knew, as my father would say, you do the right thing, I'm going to defend you. In the meantime, you need to look within yourself. And the way that this team has always been presented has been in a very class and a polished way. And for the kind of remarks to have been made were just totally uncalled for, unconscionable, and it made us all feel bad. So I was really proud of the girls because how can you prepare for a moment like that? Can you really prepare for a moment like that when it just gut set, gets right to your inner gut, and it rains on your greatest moment in your career, your basketball life. But ladies handled it, I think, with a great deal of dignity, poise, composure. Man, I was so proud of them. The stories that they shared. Is it possible that you could be more proud of them than you were that they played for a national championship? They restored my faith, or they continue to restore my faith in people, the dignity of a human being. They had grown. Just that incident just allowed them, put them on a stage that you would think they couldn't handle. I sat there with such admiration as I watched them speak and to handle questions, and I thought, wow, that would be so tough for me to do. I share one incident with Essence Carson, the young lady actually who spoke the longest, and she said, as Coach said, we stand. And I thought, this girl is a brilliant kid. I mean, like, A student, a musical genius of sorts, and never said anything. She was always yes, no, maybe, and she stood up and she articulated so well, and I thought, oh, you just want to hug them, and it continues to let us all know, as coaches, as we all are, that it's not just the winning and the losing. Far from that. It's the young women that they become. And I thought that they came of age. In some instances, the age of innocence was lost, the realities of life. Because as I listened to so many questions, I thought, you really are 17. You really are 18. You really don't know, So that was lost, but yet it was an awakening of sorts. And I was just proud of the way they presented themselves to the world. But surprise? No. Surprise at the level was just a special moment, and it's a moment that I'll never forget.
Do you think that Imus's remarks were just a sign of something more troubling, more general, larger attitudes from the public?
I think it, unfortunately, I think that it was probably a sign of other more troubling issues in our society. And quite frankly, the least of which is just race and gender, or being misogynistic. I mean, that was not a trivialized event that took place. This was a national championship. People aren't cute in those things. There was a lot of things that were said, but that he said it is not so much the issue now as much as it was said, and unfortunately, whether people say it or not, there are too many things that have happened that speak to a mindset that's there. But I do think that he revealed the greater good in people. I think that it caused people to talk a lot more about a lot of things. And it's not to put this on anyone, even including Imus. It caused people to have an open dialogue. It caused us as adults to ask ourselves, what role are we playing? It's caused me to see that a lot of parents want to do something about what's been going on in this world. But sometimes we get so wrapped up in the work that we do, that we don't have a chance. Are we to blame? We seek to find another way to be good parents and to lead our children in a proper way. No, it spoke to a lot of issues. That we all had to take a check. Look, a simple thing of, so what are the stations going to do? That's a lot of money. He's a very popular person. That's a lot of money. It became an economic issue. It became one of what's going on in the music, on the music side of it. What's going on the teaching side of it. Who are we as adults? Are we responsible as adults? What can we do going forward? Can we talk about that? And it's not to put this on anybody, but it caused us to stop and think about, we are role models, we really are. And we need to speak up. It wasn't about, the Rutgers women's basketball team or the coach. It really wasn't. It's like, at what time do we as a nation stand up for what we believe to be right? When do we actually put ourselves in the same position as everyone else? And like I said to you before, I really do believe that so many of the things that happen today that we're quite frankly appalled with and upset with, it wouldn't have to be like that if we just put ourselves in the place of the people that are involved.
Was there ever a conflict between being a good mom and being a good coach?
I'll never be satisfied as a parent, because I think that something's going to suffer, you know. And while coaching is important, what is most important and would haunt me all the days of my life is to have not been the best mom that I can be. We can only hope that we are, because I know the importance of parents. I know what my parents meant to me. You know, being critical and knowing that I've done the best that I can. Am I the perfect parent? No. Because you know what I think maybe is the perfect parent is a parent that can stay home, you know, and just, that's the truth. You know, I mean, my mom was home, but I had to work. The fact that I enjoyed it, so, you know, you're going to come up short. And I think that's something that all moms experience. But not only moms, this day, people don't give men enough credit for their children. They don't want to be away from their sons or their daughters, but they do. You know, it's something that we have to go through. And so you hope that your children will come to understand at a later time. One lady gave me the only thing I can give myself now, and that is an incident where, after my husband had passed, I had to be at a recruiting event. And all the coaches that, if you care about one of the kids that are playing on this court, you have to be there. Well, I didn't get there because this lady couldn't come and watch my daughter. So I showed up a day late, and I was so stressed out about this. I felt stressed because I'm leaving Nina. You know, now my husband's not there to look after the kids. My son, you know, my sons are, wow, I'm leaving mom. I mean, mom's leaving. And so as I climbed to the top of the steps, I sat there and I started watching, and tears just came from my eyes. And I started to cry, you know, but I was sitting there by myself, and a lady climbed to the top of the steps. And she said, you're not going to always be the best mom all the time. You're not going to be the best coach all the time. You're different, and you're special, and you need to accept that. She said, but all you can be is the best person that you can be at that time. Be at peace and don't be so rough on yourself. Well, keep in mind that I didn't even know this lady. You know, I've been blessed because this was an angel. And I kept thinking, no, I'm not the best mom. All of us, if we have children, I know that we feel guilty. You know, and you feel like, well, I came short on my work. I came short. You know, you're always feeling guilty. And she gave me a peace of mind. And as she walked down the steps, one of the people who was there, who happened to have been a former player of mine, came up to me and she said, Coach, do you know who that was who was speaking to you? I said, no. She said, that was Willie White, 4-time Olympic gold medalist. And I thought, yeah, thanks. I mean, we can always give each other words of encouragement.
Do you consider yourself a feminist?
You know what, that's a generalization. If you mean a person who is conscious and would fight for the rights of women, yes. If you consider this male bashing and all that, no. So, I mean, people want to put you in a category. You know, it's just like, I'm a person that believes in equality and the opportunity for all people. You know, call it what you like. I just believe in truth as much as I know it. And then that's the way I would speak up for us.
What do you think of the women's movement overall? Do you think it accomplished something for women in general? Did it accomplish something for you particularly?
There had to be a voice. And the women who stepped out, that gave voice and rise, I continue to thank them to this day. I think that we all should. I think that, you know, we too often in life just sort of get the remnants of other people's sacrifice and go on, and we think that it just existed just because we showed up, and that wasn't the case. There are people who lost jobs and, you know, a lot of other things behind that made the sacrifices. And I think that we have a responsibility, each and every one of us, in our own way, to make life better. And in my way, I can make basketball a little better. But did it give rise? It made people more conscious, you know, much more conscious of what's going on. And some of us have benefited. I gotta believe that most of us have and don't even realize.
You said quite a bit about Title IX. Do you remember hearing about it when it first came into law?
Well, you know, it's interesting when you asked me that question, did I hear about Title IX? Yeah, I knew about it because I was coaching at the time. But I'm going to give you my impression of that. It's been good, real good. But on the other hand, I question the intentions, the initial intentions, because women, the women who were heading the organization, the AIAW, didn't have the money for the lawyers or any of the other things. The law had come down, and so it was important that each university basically instituted, you know, if they receive federal dollars, the opportunities for women. You can take it one way or the other. You can either stand on the outside and dole the federal dollars or the monies that were there out, or you can control it. So you wrap it up, everybody's together, and so now I decide to give you your portion however I decide it is, and whatever. So that's basically how I saw it. So it was a piece of federal legislation that to this day benefits millions, and thank goodness for that. But I think that it's unfortunate that the AIAW wasn't a little stronger in their opportunity to expose women to opportunities to play and get scholarships.
What were the resources like for college women's sports pre-Title IX when you were in school?
Slim to none. The resources were slim to none. You almost felt like you had to keep begging and asking, gee, could we practice in the gym? Can we have 6 balls? The guys do. Can we have a sub? Or can we have a hot meal? The guys do. Gee, we got our sandwiches from the cafeteria. Are you kidding me? When, like that bothers me. Because remember I said that it would be my intention to always know that we were equal to. Why should I have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? When someone else is going to have a hot meal or some of the other things, because people don't realize it. See, sports is the last bastion of male dominance. We're not going to be stronger. We're not trying to be stronger. We're not trying to dunk. We're not trying to be powerful. That's foolish. But can't we coexist? Can't there be a fulfillment in the female athlete? Can't there be a fulfillment of the female that's the CEO? There are prices to be paid. There's a price for excellence. But see, I would also say that, ladies, you shouldn't expect people to spend their money to come to see you play just because you're a girl. That's, nah. No, you need, and I don't think anybody would argue with that. I don't think anybody would argue with that. So I just don't think that equality, opportunity. And that's really what's out here now. It's just equal opportunity.
Being in the world of women's college sports now, in the post-Title IX era or in the Title IX era, how have things changed? What are the resources like now? What do you have because of that?
I think that there's a lot more scrutiny on the equality of the programs, and because there's always going to be the financial support to whatever extent that it is at a university, then it's kind of tough to not give relatively equal, if not equal, funding and support of the women's program without getting into a great deal of detail, whether we're talking about promotions, marketing, and the whole likes. I mean, I have a lot of questions about a lot of those kinds of things, but it is better. It's gotten much, much better. It continues to be a need to educate, and I think that for the powers to be, and in particular, they're probably being administered and run by a predominance of men, as men have their own daughters. And as men are equal thinking, and really some women too, because it's not just the males, I think that it can't help but get better. And when it's getting better, it's not getting worse, I don't think. When it's getting better, and it truly is getting better, then I have a smile on my face. I think that we have a responsibility as coaches to not just wrap ourselves up in the game itself, but the promotion of the program, and the education of people, as a society, the exposure, and I've just seen so many women, whether they're doctors and surgeons and lawyers and the likes, that said, you know what, I didn't have a chance to do those things. I'd heard that, for example, Senator Clinton wanted to become an astronaut, was she? They weren't taking women at that time. So, but now I really do believe that most girls, most moms and dads can look at their daughter and say, so what do you want to be? You know, this is a price you have to pay, and you can be that. It's going to take some work, a lot of work, but you can be that. And that's the greatest news of them all.
I want to ask you a couple of moments in recent women's sports history, or not too recent maybe, but do you remember the 1973 Billie Jean King Bobby Riggs tennis match?
Oh, yeah, don't I? Yeah, I do, with a great deal of pride. I was hoping that she would win, praying that she wouldn't embarrass us, and believing and knowing that all of people's, I believed, that the vast majority of opinions of women as athletes was resting on her performance, and convinced that, boy, if she doesn't, what are people going to say? We're the laughingstock. And then feeling like, I wish I could take some of the pressure off of her. She shouldn't have to be the only one that carries this, because my mindset, the way I think is, I want to help. I want to help. I really will. I want to do anything I can help. But you know what, Billie, you're in this by yourself. This is a monster. You know, this is a monster. I can't even imagine, you know, my legs would begin to just buckle with the thought that so much of everything, all of her dreams, I mean, we're riding on it. It's good. I hope that they shielded her, didn't tell her, you know, I hope they didn't tell her what was all laying in the balance, you know. But from my mind, the world, what opportunities were we going to be given? How are we going to be perceived? And I was really just so proud of her. And I thank her to this day.
How about the 99 Women's World Cup?
I was so excited. Let me tell you something. With Brandy, Chastain, and that group, I'll tell you what. I remember calling to the Women's Sports Foundation. I think I was trying to speak to Donna Lopiana, who was heading it at the time, along with Billie Jean. I just wanted to say, what a wonderful moment. See, I, having been in the sport as long as I have, this is not just something I picked up. This has not been about money. It has been much more about furthering the sport for all of us. So I hold my breath with the World Cup soccer. I hold my breath because I'm just cheering and I'm hoping that they do something special. You know, for once people paid attention. You know, it was like the most recent soccer match that the women were approaching. It doesn't matter whether you play soccer or you don't play anything. Don't you realize that everyone's talking about something that women are doing, you know? And this was in a very positive way. And I realized, I honestly realized that every time I put a team on the floor, it's not just the game, it's what people see and what their impression is. So I feel it necessary for me to do the positive things to further our sport. I think that those of us who have been in the sport as long as we have always felt that. We need to grow it, because I remember where it was and where it must go.
You know, even though women are more than 50% of college students, and I think kind of moving towards substantially more than that at this point, women's college athletics certainly still lags behind men's college athletics in terms of resources and public attention and that kind of thing. What do you think is the reason for that? Is there hope for that to? What do we do to make that change?
Well, if I did what I need to do, we would change it right now. But here's the thing. The vast majority of dollars are doled out by athletic directors, of whom most are males, okay? They always want to tell you about how women aren't making money. Well, I guess we're not. You know, all I can do is just coach and do the best I can. And try to, but if we don't have the marketing dollars and the promotion dollars, if there aren't people that's willing to put out the money, and see, they don't say, you know, what sports are really, see, there's a mistake, there is a fallacy with regards to how much money sports is making, period, male and women's sports. Women's sports does not make money. Does that mean that she doesn't deserve an opportunity? We're relatively new to this game. Do and should we look forward to doing that? Yes. But you know, the women shouldn't be the scapegoat for what's happening when the truth of the matter is that, quite frankly, I believe that there should be some sanity in all of sports. You know, just sanity, sanity, sanity. You know, you got great professors that are being denied basic things there's an imbalance. We as a society talk about one thing out of the side of our face, and then we don't do the right thing as we talk about balance between athletics and academics. And so you would say, well, why would she say that? She's a basketball coach. Well, you know what? I have opinions, and one thing I'm not a speaker, so I don't always do the best, but I'm just giving you my own opinion about that. It's way out of whack. It's out of balance. But unfortunately, no one's going to pull back. It's like an arms race. No one's going to pull back unless somebody says, stop this madness. Let's bring about equality. Well, guess what? That's the presidents, all of the presidents. No one person can do that. Now, and here's the problem. So let's say one person steps out and decides to do that on their own. Then you put that university at a disadvantage. There are so many great benefits to athletics. Don't get me wrong on that. But as I do believe with everything, because I have a lot of opinions about policy, politics, it really means something. It has always meant something to me. But right now, if you pull back, then you put your organization, your school, whatever, at a disadvantage. But I think that there should be a lot of things that are looked at. But I can promise you, women's sports is not what it's made out to be. We're not, and we don't have the same exact resources. There needs to be a serious balance in terms of what should be happening across the board in everything.
Okay. All right, here's our speed round. What's the most meaningful piece of advice you've ever received?
Truly, the most meaningful piece of advice was that of my father, and truly what my mom and dad demonstrated is that your voice matters and that you have a responsibility to speak up. That to deny yourself, to deny an opinion and not speak it is to deny yourself. And God gave you a voice that is no less than anyone else's. It is your opinion, as long as it is just that, that it's as valuable, and it's just as valuable as anybody else's. And speak your mind. And it might not be right, but don't look for others to agree. You see, the problem too often is we all look to see to our right and to the left, does someone agree with me? Don't worry about whether people agree. Is that what you believe in your heart? You know what, then it's right. Why? Because you thought it. You believed it. And I've always been taught that, and I think that I've demonstrated that all of my life, and that was something that Mom and Dad both taught me a long time ago.
What one piece of advice would you give a young woman about creating a work-life balance?
It is extremely difficult. It can be done, but don't ever expect to be at peace. You'll never be at peace. Because you can't, just to kiss your babies, it's just a warm feeling, when you're playing with your kids. Oh my God, this is the greatest feeling in the world, just to love them and hug them, and yet have to walk out the door when you see them standing there. And pretty soon they're going to grow up, and you're going to wish that you had all those times again. But then, that's why I say it's so difficult, because what if you didn't work? Then you wouldn't be in a position to give them some of the things that are there. It's going to be difficult. You're going to pursue your dreams, because you have to pursue it with a tremendous amount of passion. I just don't think that you should do anything unless you just have all the love and the drive that you can possibly be. But honestly, it's almost like, if you will, sports is like a jealous god of sorts. It's the time, you're never through. People just see the games, but they can't imagine how much time you have to spend doing so many other things. So how do you balance that with your passion, your love, your family? As much as you can, you try to separate it. And then again, as much as you can, you try to involve your family, whether it's the trips. I wouldn't worry so much about being the professional. I know that I was so concerned about that in my early years, and I'm thinking, you know what? I didn't need to get on a bus. I should have just let my assistants be on a bus. I should have driven or ridden in the van behind the bus with my, 2 sons and my daughter and my husband, because they were always going. I'm trying to be a professional. Like, those are times that I miss. So if I were really, really very specific, I would say that all of these times come in your life once. You're never going to be totally satisfied. You're not. Do the best you can, but try to involve your family in the activities that allow them to smile, that keep them not having to be measured by your success or what are you doing. Why should a child go to a mall and be asked, what does Santa want to bring you? I bet some games. You really think so? You really think a kid wants to hear that they want their G.I. Joes or they want whatever it is? So it's a tough balance, but it can be done.
All right. We know what you wound up doing. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I dreamt of, like I said, becoming a concert pianist, and I didn't because I didn't work hard. I wanted to be a track star, and then I realized that it was a lot of work, a lot of running for that one lap. And then I thought, okay, I'll be a lawyer. No, I'll be a judge, because I have been always socially conscious about equality and opportunity. And then I realized that there's a lot of books that you have to read. So I didn't do those things because I wasn't willing to pay the price. I did what I love, and that was my passion. It was basketball. I wanted to be a physical education teacher because, see, at the time, I didn't even keep in mind that I didn't see women coaching basketball. No one coached women's basketball. We weren't playing, you know? So then when I had a chance to coach, that would be the form that I would be able to actually coach. And it's like, I have been truly blessed. This is I got the best job in the world, coaching basketball, something I love.
What's the accomplishment you're most proud of?
Seeing the young women, the 17 and 18-year-old just evolve, you know, in their profession, when they stood up. I mean, there are so many markers that I look at and I think, wow, they were just, you know, and really even as I have three of my assistants are former players, and I sort of smile and I think, can you imagine that? I have so much respect for their opinion and what they think and what they're doing, and yet it wasn't too long ago that, you know, they were that 17 and 18-year-old woman that was there, and so I'm just so proud of them. But they represent what this is really all about, evolving, doing something in life that they enjoy, and making a positive contribution to society in any number of ways, and that's what it is.
What was your very first paying job?
My first paying job was working at Moss Supermarket. Downstairs you had groceries, and upstairs they had clothes, and I worked upstairs where they allowed you to buy things on credit, and as a result, for the first year and a half, I never took home 1 or 2 pennies because I always bought clothes and that was it.
Which 3 adjectives best describe you?
Sensitive, intense. Maybe I should say passionate. Passionate because that would go on both sides, basketball and compassionate. I empathize and I put myself in other people's place. I know that I do.
What person that you've never met has had the biggest influence on your life?
I would have loved to have met Dr. King, and I've read about him and I've heard of his teachings, his understanding of Mahatma Gandhi, you know, to be at peace with yourself and to try to bring about the best in other people.
All right, and here's a bunch of either-or questions very fast. iPad or notepad?
iPad, no.
Okay. Early bird or night owl?
Night owl for sure.
Spontaneous or methodical?
Spontaneous.
Diplomatic or direct?
Direct and diplomatic. Depends on when you catch me.
Okay. Type A or easygoing?
I think I'm easygoing for the most part, except when I'm on that court, then I'm not easygoing. It's like, this is what I am.
Higher math scores or higher verbal scores?
Verbal scores for sure.
Patient or impatient?
Impatient. I think this thing should be done yesterday.
Prada or The Gap?
Probably Prada.
Prepare or cram?
No, prepared. Basketball, I'm going to prepare.
Domestically skilled or domestically challenged?
Domestically challenged.
10 minutes early or 10 minutes late?
10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes late.
Book smart or street smart?
Probably more book smart. For sure, book smart. I need to be more street smart. It'd help me in a lot of other things, but much more book smart, I think.